Everyone. So, about me, Kelsey already said a few things. I'm a senior, interning with her, and next year I'm going to NDSU in the fall to major in horticulture and hopefully minor in extension so I can do a job like her one day. I've been in FFA all 4 years of high school. I compete in nursery landscape, floriculture, range judging, and agronomy. I competed nationally at range judging 2 years ago, so that was super fun. And then I actually got to go to Florida to attend a plant science conference through FFA. I love plants and everything about it, so yeah. This picture is me at the conference, and then there's me again. We got to do tons of like industry tours, like greenhouses, a whole bunch of things. It was super fun. Just some more about me. I have grown a garden for 2 years under an FFA grant. I have 120 square feet, which is in my backyard. Thankfully, my parents let me do this. And as you can see over here, I donate all my produce straight back to the community. So this is like carrots, tomatoes, peas, whatever I've grown. And then I also had a fairy garden in the state fair last year, and that got a reserve champion. So there's just some more photos of me in my garden. I take up a lot of my backyard, so my parents love that. So what is a cut flower garden? A cut flower garden is a garden made so you can grow your own flowers to bring inside for you to create or sell your own arrangements. I know some people go to the farmer's market and they sell like these cut flower arrangements that they grow. So that's kind of fun. You can also make bouquets, centerpieces, and more. So there's that. So supplies and materials needed, we'll start there. First, you're gonna need some space to grow. So you can do like containers or pots even. We'll talk more about that if you have a raised bed. Sometimes people use those and do like a square foot gardening method. I've done that before, so have some knowledge on that. And then you're also gonna need some soil amendments, seeds, bulbs, and scissors or snips, cutters, anything really to cut your flowers. So I kind of just have some pictures there. Go to the next slide. Getting more in on space to grow. Cut flower gardens pretty much do well anywhere. So if you have like a small bed in your front yard or in your backyard, kind of just put them there, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. Usually most cut flowers need full sun and need to be watered regularly. If you keep them in containers, make sure that they're big enough and have enough room to grow. I recently have tried out like bags, like felt bags. Those work really well if you're tight on space. And I've grown potatoes in those before as well, so that's kind of fun. I don't have pictures of a bag on here, but if you look up like the felt fabric bags, they do really well. Our soil and soil amendments. So this is kind of a big thing in gardening, as we all may know. So usually the soil is no different than your regular garden, anything like that, but there are a few things to keep in mind. So adding compost or peat moss can really help like your stuff and make it grow better. And then there's tons of different kinds of soil, you know, sandy, loam, whatever, clay. So I have some things there that can help you. So mulch helps keep the soil cool and keep weeds away. So if you're struggling with weeds, add in mulch or even like some small rocks can help with that. I've also experienced like the landscape fabric. If you put that underneath before you put soil on top, that helps keep weeds away a lot. Compost can be added if it is too sandy or if it's too clayey. Vermiculite can also be added if it's too clayey. It helps kind of break it up and give it more air in the soil so it's aerated. And then if you are testing or if you're questioning your soil, you can test it. I know like the one just shut down, but I heard there's one in Nebraska and Minnesota that you can send your soil to if you're just getting it straight from the ground. If it's in a bag, you probably don't need to send it, obviously. Seeds and bulbs. So not all flowers love to grow in North Dakota. As we know, we have that colder climate, which can be hard, but there are plenty that thrive here, so make sure to check out the USDA plant hardiness map when picking out seeds. Bismarck is in zone 4A, I believe. Depends on where you live, it'll change. I think there's 2 zones in North Dakota right now. Some of the best flowers in our area include cosmos, zinnias, peonies, sunflowers, dahlias, and more. So those are just some options when choosing. We'll go over that more. Some main factors when choosing your varieties of seeds and bulbs. So what to grow? Usually when growing a cut flower garden, there are 4 main points. So you have your focal point, your spikes, your discs, and your fillers. We'll have a slide on each one of those. Stem size and the size of the flower are very, very important because that's gonna kind of depend on how you create your bouquets, your centerpieces, everything like that. Color depends on what kind of color you have and what time it blooms. And then, like I said, all of this has its own slides, so we will go for that. First, we're going to talk about our focal point. So our focal point is something that we want to appeal to our eyes most, something that stands out. So when you look at a bouquet, you look at your garden, what's going to stand out and hit your eyes most? Some flowers can be like zinnias or sunflowers. Those are seeds, so you can plant those either beforehand or just straight into the ground. Bulbs, we have tulips, daffodils, and anemones, and then we have some lilies, which are tubers. So those bulbs would have to probably be planted. I think some of them have to be planted in the fall, and some of them have to be planted in the spring. Do some more research on that if you plan on doing that. Next, we'll do our spikes. Spikes are used to add height and interest to floral arrangements, so something that's going to be like the height that brings it and stuff. So they have high points or peaks of interest. So sometimes like you'll see grasses in bouquets that have those, but also flowers can be used like snapdragons. They kind of look nice like in the middle of a bouquet and make it look tall. You have salvia, larkspur, and coxcomb as well. Those all do really well as like middle pieces in your bouquet. Next we have discs. So these are smaller accent flowers that add some visual interest, texture, and may serve as like accent to our focal flowers, so kind of adjacent to our main flower that catches our eye, so our focal point. Using the color wheel can really be helpful to create accents in your floral flower arrangements. So if you have like a red flower, what would go well with a red flower? I don't know because I don't have the color wheel in front of me, but if you use the color wheel, you'll be able to figure that out to kind of create some nice arrangements. Some flowers that do well as discs are cosmos, poppies, strawflower, marigolds, and black-eyed Susan. Strawflower actually holds its color after it dries, so if you're going to do dry arrangements, that does really well in those. And then next we have our fillers. Fillers are those more delicate blooms that fill in the gaps. They add volume to your arrangements and make them look complete. These can also add more scent. As you can see, I have some herbs on there like basil and mint. Those can add scent if you're looking for that. Even lavender can be used in arrangements, which also adds that more florally scent. This can also be used to take up any awkward space in your arrangement. Like I said, it adds volume. This is like making your bouquet look full, make it look beautiful, that kind of thing. Fountain grass, globe amaranth, basil, the ornamental kind, or I know purple basil looks really well in arrangements as well. Mint, statice, and astilbe all look beautiful. And some of these you might actually even have in your yard right now, so that's kind of nice. Size. This is a very important part for cut flowers because this is going to depend on how tall your bouquets are going to be or how big your centerpieces will be. Stems should be of a longer variety, so if you look on the back of a seed packet or on like the box if you pre-buy your plants, it'll tell you usually, or you can look it up. 18 to 24 inches will give you that room to cut the flower, put it into a pot or centerpiece, which is very, very nice. That just makes sure that there's room for them to stand up in a vase. Next, we have our bloom size. So our focal point should have the largest flower. So what's going to bring attention to your eye? Something that's big, so we should do that. Smaller blooms add texture and provide detail, so that would be more like those, let's go back and we'll find the discs. That would be what you'd find there, or those fillers. And detail and texture is needed if you're going to create arrangements, sell centerpieces, trying to have a variety of things. Now color, this is kind of important as well, but it's totally up to you. This is kind of how you create your garden and your color. So again, considering the color wheel, if you're going to sell these, that might be nice to kind of appeal to that eye or whatever. So things you should consider: do you want it to be bright, warm, or cool toned, pastel, more foliage plants? It's totally up to you. Like, this would be your garden. If your favorite color is pink, obviously you're going to want pink flowers, so I plant pink flowers. Totally up to you. You design, create whatever you'd like, you know, that's up to you. Next is our bloom time. So a few things is it's very important, and it's up to the gardener to decide what they'd like. So if you want stuff that blooms in the spring, sometimes bulbs that you plant in the fall would be the easiest, or like sometimes like those basil can be kept as a houseplant. So if you have these bulbs and you have basil, you can make a little small arrangement. Summer blooms is something that can be planted in the spring and harvested until your last frost date. Fall, that's something that's planted in the summer and usually harvested a few times before your last frost date. And then if you want something of all seasons, then you can plant spring, summer, and fall, and you'll have something blooming all seasons. You'll be able to create flower gardens and bouquets all season long. And then if you're trying to create those bouquets, we just want to pick those focals, those spikes, those discs, and those filler flowers so they all bloom at the same time. So like if you have basil and sunflowers or something, pretty much just having things that bloom at the same time if you're going to create it as a bouquet. The next thing is setting up your cut flower garden. So if you have a raised bed, I like to use the square foot gardening method for raised beds. So it's just 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot, obviously. It does really well at keeping out spacing, making sure everything is spaced correctly. You should always double check with the packaging or online to see how far apart things should be spaced. For example, you can do 2 to 4 snapdragons per square foot, just kind of depending on how big your raised bed is and how much room and how you plant them pretty much. So plant 1 in each corner or just 2. That kind of depends. If you use pots or containers, just follow the instructions on those. If you do plant straight into the pot, you might have to deal with some like thinning back to make sure you don't get too crowded or anything. And then I drew up a little example. So as you can see, like I have my taller stuff kind of back here. So those will all be your taller growing plants, just to make sure that they don't overwhelm the smaller plants. So each one of these would be like a square foot, and then you plant like however many per square foot you need. So like I said, the snapdragons would be like 2 per square foot. I believe zinnias are 2 per square foot as well. Don't quote me on that. And then the poppies and the globe amaranth are all different. I know sunflowers are 1 per square foot. So kind of drawing up a plan like that if you have a garden would be nice. Yeah, those poppies are 2 to 4 per square foot as well. But yeah, I'm going to create a little bouquet here to show you all, and then one of you guys get to take this home. So we're going to go back to these. So we're going to go to our focal point. So I just bought some flowers from the store or whatever, but I'm going to kind of show you how I would create a bouquet if I had a cut flower garden. So some things I have is like these green flowers here. I noticed that they would catch the eye because they're, pretty bright green. So that's going to be our more focal point. As you can see, they kind of have that shape that's going to kind of appeal to your eye. Excuse me. So I'm going to put those in there and kind of they'll catch your eye. And then we're going to go to our spikes, which are to add height and interest. So this kind of is double as a filler as well. These are kind of taller than the rest of my flowers, so these are going to add some like height. As you can see, these are taller than both these flowers. They're going to add height and they're going to take up space, so it's going to make it so it looks fuller. Some discs I have. So these little daisies or flowers here, these are kind of small flowers that appeal to these smaller ones. So as you can see, they're smaller in size than our focal point, which is what you want to look for when you're putting together an arrangement. So if you're obviously cutting from your garden, you might not have these like exact same flowers or whatever, but you'll put those in there. These smaller flowers here are also a little bit smaller of a size than my focal flowers, but that's kind of, you want size, variety, color, everything in there. And then along that same category, I have some carnations, which also kind of bring that same thing. They're going to bring a little bit of height, add some texture in there, and they're also going to appeal to the eye, so these could also be used as a focal point. Put those in there. And then lastly, we'll go to our fillers over here. So I have some smaller filler flowers over here, just some like little fun grass. And then this is actually status, so that's kind of just going to go in there, and as you can see, it's going to just take up empty space we have. And then like these can be used as a filler flower as well, just taking up whatever empty space there is, whatnot. As well as these roses look really well as just like putting it in an empty spot and stuff. As well as this the flower here. And they have one of these, so I'm gonna kind of enter it towards the middle if I can get it in there. And then I just have some lilies. Lilies, once they bloom, can be used as a focal flower, but right now they're just kind of not blooming, so we'll use it to take up some space, and then eventually, once they bloom, you can move it to the middle of your bouquet. And yeah, that's kind of it right there. I'll go back to the end of my slide here. Do we have any questions? No? Okay, well, we have one back there.
Incorporate non-flower elements, things like fruit or sticks, things like that are probably coming from more perennial.
Sure. Can you repeat it? I didn't hear the first half of your question.
So just incorporating other elements like the sticks and the fruits for those more unique arrangements.
Sure, so I'll go back to my filler slide here. So if you have more like sticks or anything like that, they kind of just, like, I kind of go back to like, if you're gonna put basil in an arrangement, obviously it's gonna have to be long and it's more not like here, but I think like sticks can just kind of like go in wherever to take up space. So like I kind of have a dead spot here, so like, you know how sometimes they have like those pine cones on like those sticks or whatever, the ones that kind of like this here, that would be a great spot to put that. So anywhere that has like dead space, so kind of like just put that in there, like the little fruits on them, probably go more on the outside so they don't get knocked off. Do we have any other questions?
Would you reduce the size of some of those?
Yeah, I probably would. I didn't cut all of these before I put them up here, but yeah, I would probably get them to be more of a circle, unique shape, or if you're looking for like one to be more tall or one to be more short, you can always cut off the bottoms. I think cutting at an angle is what they say to make sure that they get better water absorption. So if you're gonna do that, kind of remind yourself of the bottom of the pot and where your angles are gonna sit.